All right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about how it is you get your ideas out there into the world. And I wanted to talk about what I feel is a common misconception, the thing that keeps most people from trying new things with their small business, and what I think keeps a lot of people from even trying to start a small business at all. And that's the idea that your idea itself is such a good idea that you can only implement it once you're ready to do it properly or ready to do it perfectly. And this is something that I feel really takes away from your ability to be productive and your ability to put out good ideas into the world. And what inspired this video was just an email that I received. It's actually a really well thought out email, good, well-intentioned email with some suggestions on the board repair forum that I did. A lot of people have said, what if on this board repair forum, rather than set it up so that it's all private, people could post questions, but they could only view the answer to the question if they paid or they were a paying member. This way, it would be indexed by Google. You get better SEO. What if you put it together a system where instead of it being a flat rate revenue sharing with the people who are going to be instructors on along with me, what if you had it set up so that you were paid by the answer? And here's the thing. These are all actually good ideas, things that should be discussed, should be debated, should be argued, all good stuff. But the reality with all these ideas is that it takes time to implement these ideas. It takes time to bring these ideas to fruition. So very often people will say, well, this seems half-baked, or this could have been done so much better. And what a lot of people, I think, don't realize is that a lot of ideas simply would not occur at all if we waited until we had a chance to do it perfectly. This is something that Zefrank calls brain crack, which I'm going to move on to shortly. But this forum in particular was an idea that I had about 6 months ago, and it's been sitting there for 6 months. I installed that software months ago, but just the process of having spare time to sit down and get the forum to work out all the stupid little kinks because I am using the wrong version of PHP or whatever that vBulletin wants, just working out all the kinks in terms of getting the paid subscription working, putting a theme up that works, making the topics, making doing the video, announcing the forum, putting that link everywhere, finding other people that want to be instructors, finding people who may not want to be an instructor, but convincing them that it would be a good idea for them to be an instructor on the forum. All of this takes time, effort, and energy. So even when you have a completely bare bones forum, the idea is, it's not necessarily that people were sitting in a room for several weeks and... Are you attacking something? It's not like they were sitting in a room for several weeks and nobody thought of all these great ideas. Rather, it's people are already trying to accomplish something, they're already trying to do something, and now you're adding in this new idea that has to compete. Blackberry? Blackberry, that's a rubber band, not a mousey. Come here, Blackberry. Good girl. Oh, good kitty. I figured this would happen if I did videos at home. But this is my cat, Blackberry. Good girl. So, they think that we're just sitting there with these ideas and that we just come up with them half-baked without putting any serious effort into them. And the reality is that these ideas have to compete with our daily life. These ideas have to compete with the work that I already do to make money. They have to compete with requests for new services or troubleshooting on existing services from existing clients. They have to compete with managing a business. They have to compete with getting audited by the government. They have to compete with all these other things. So, what we do very often as business owners or entrepreneurs is we simply throw ideas out there and then develop them based on what we think we need and how successful they are. Let's say that I put a ridiculous amount of effort into that forum. Let's say I put all the effort into designing this custom software and it turns out that that doesn't actually affect SEO. What if I put all that effort in and then I realize that nobody's actually willing to pay for that forum? That may wind up being a complete waste of time. Now I have 28 people that signed up in a day and it continues to go and go and go, and we will solve the problems that present themselves. If the payment system that I have for people who are posting winds up being bullshit, we will solve that problem when it becomes a problem rather than solving a problem that at the moment does not exist. Because right now there are serious problems that do exist that I would rather put my time, effort, and energy into. And the biggest thing I want to get across to you here is that if you try to be a perfectionist, if you try to be somebody that simply does not implement new ideas because you haven't had a chance to do them perfectly, what's going to happen are two things. Firstly, you're never going to get anything done because nothing is ever going to be perfect, especially in technology. You're never going to get your idea to be perfect. But B, the sad part here is that you don't even get to feel that non-productive sting that you should feel from not actually accomplishing something. So when I don't accomplish what I set out to accomplish, at the end of the day, it's, man, I really wanted to do that, but I didn't. That sucks. And that feeling of that sucks then motivates me the next day to accomplish it. But when you keep telling yourself, I'm going to do that idea as soon as I have everything I need to do it perfect, you feel good. You actually start to feel like, I didn't do shit today, but I thought about when my idea was going to be perfect, and that's good enough for me for now. So what happens is 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years pass you by, and you haven't actually done anything towards trying to achieve your goal or put your idea out into the world. And you don't even feel bad about it, which is really, really a shame. So this is also something that can be applied to the board repair video series that I've done here. So let's say I open up some of these board repair videos that I did a long time ago. Not really a long time ago, about let's say 3 years ago. So if I open up some of the really, really old videos here, I'm going to try and find them in my browser. So bear with me. One of the things that you may notice is that these videos were complete piles of crap. I mean, just like nothing explained, nothing makes sense, nothing is, you don't see any schematics on the screen, you don't see any diagrams. Rather than have a quality picture, you have me with a camera probably sitting on my shoulder like this while I'm working, and these videos really sucked. So here, I'll play one of those videos right now so that you can see it, so that you can understand what I mean when I say that this video sucked. So let me just go over here to, no, don't open Hikvision program. So when I go over here, let's just open the browser. And this was a board repair video from January 2nd, 2014. So about 2 years ago. I don't want to see your ads, douchebag. I don't want you to make any money. Go figure. The player decides to crash because I'm trying to show you something in a video. That's common. Things never work when I actually am doing a video. But like if you look here, I don't explain what's going on. I don't explain why I'm replacing this chip. I don't explain how to diagnose that chip is bad. And I'm replacing it. Let's just fast forward and play. And look at this. This is a fucking $100 JVC camera, a complete piece of shit that's on my shoulder, probably like this, and shaking as I'm soldering. You can't see any of the technique. You can't see if I'm even doing anything right at all. Half of the time, the chip is not in view. It's a total bullshit video. It's a complete bullshit video. And this bullshit video has 36,774 views. Now, here's the thing that I want you to be thinking about when you see this video. You may think this video is complete bullshit, and if you think it's bullshit, you're absolutely right. It is. It was a shittily done video. But the thing about that video is that it opened up an audience for when I decided I wanted to do it correctly. So A, that video being uploaded allowed me to realize that there was an audience for motherboard repair content on YouTube. So by doing that video, instead of spending $3,000 on camcorder stuff, $2,000 on a video editing machine and the capture hardware for it, $1,000 on a new microscope, a new camera, and all that crap, instead of spending all that money to do something that people frankly don't give a fuck about, what I was able to do with that video is gauge that there were people actually interested in what it is that I would be doing. So I was able to gauge that people were interested because that video was getting me tons of messages, it was getting me tons of comments, and I never did that video to get views or comments or attention or anything like that. I just did it because that was something that I just so happened to be doing that day, and for some crazy reason I decided, let me just put up a video of what I'm doing just for the hell of it. And when I did that, I realized there is serious demands for this content. There is a serious void on the internet of this type of content. So let me produce that type of content. And I realized that there was a demand for it. Now, the thing is, because I did that video, and because I did the video on QFN soldering beforehand, about a year beforehand, what happened is I had a small audience of people who were interested in that content. So then when I decided to buy proper gear to do real videos and explain things properly, and I got a good microphone, and I got a good camera, and I started doing the screen capture, and all that good stuff, and I got the microscope camera, by the time I bought all that, rather than buy all that so that I could speak to a non-existent audience, when I had everything right, when I had everything proper, when I was implementing my idea perfectly, rather than implementing that idea perfectly to an audience of 0, I was now implementing that idea perfectly to an audience of 2 or 3 or 5,000 people or whatever it was at the time. So implementing an idea imperfectly, if you're not, assuming that you're not doing anything really awful. For example, like you can't implement an ATM machine imperfectly. Like you can't set up an ATM machine so that I can see the last person's PIN number or grab their card information or shit like that. But with something like a forum or a YouTube video or shit like this, where or let's say like a dog walking service, something where there's not lives on the line, where there's not, let's say, somebody's financial security on the line. It's totally okay to experiment, and it's totally okay to implement ideas that are not perfect, especially in any type of creative field, because that's the only way you're going to figure out if there's any interest in them. And further, this is where I get to what Zefrank used to say about this thing called brain crack. Zefrank had this thing called brain crack, which was this idea that you have in your head that's amazing and you never implement it because you feel the idea is so good that you can't implement the idea until you can implement it perfectly. So what happens is it sits in your head and you never implement it. Now the problem is that every time you start doing something new that you've never done before, and try to anticipate everything that you want to try to anticipate, it's never going to work out the way it works out in your head, right? It's going to suck. The first time that somebody tries to shoot a basket, they don't get a 3-point shot from half court. Like when you were 6 years old and you first decided, let me shoot a basketball, you probably didn't get a 3-point shot from half court. The first time I tried to fix a motherboard, it didn't exactly go the way it does in my recent YouTube videos. The first time I filmed a video, I wasn't so clear in discussing my content or my point as I was in a later video. The first time I filmed a motherboard repair video, I sucked at explaining everything compared to how I explain it now. You have to get the suck out. That's what Zefrank says. When you start doing something, you are going to suck at it. So it's best to get the suck out in the beginning. So when you first start, don't worry about perfection. Don't worry about, I can't do this idea because I'm not ready because of all this crap. You need to get the suck out, and you want to get the suck out as fast as possible so that 3 months from now or 6 months from now or even 1 month from now, you don't suck anymore. So you have to get the suck out in the beginning, and that requires not being afraid of implementing an idea that may not necessarily be perfect. I didn't even realize that I was using capture hardware that was screwing up the color spaces that fucked up capturing a 422 lossless HDMI stream. I didn't even notice that I was using hardware that fucked that up until 3.5 months ago. Can you imagine if I decided, let me wait to do this stuff until I know that I'm capturing perfect imagery from my microscope camera and my camcorder and all that stuff? 3 months ago, I just figured that out. Can you imagine all the content that I created, all the people that I helped, all the hundreds of thousands of people that watched that stuff, the audience that I created for the content, the people who opened stores and paid off their mortgage based on my content? All of that wouldn't have existed just because I said, well, I have to wait until I can buy this $2,000 capture card. I don't want to use this knockoff piece of shit little USB dongle from China for $300 that screws up color spaces half of the time you plug it in. But the reality of the world is that most people who are good at building systems, at building businesses, at getting their ideas out there and being successful, those are people who are not afraid to do something that's not 100% perfect the first time. And, this is just what I do with business. I didn't always have a store. When I originally built my store, I actually ran out of money in the beginning of construction. It's funny. So I did I had the desks. I got all the stuff that I needed. I got the shelves. I redid the floor. All the stuff I needed to do, I did. And I didn't have money for the fucking door or the glass in the front. So I had a gate going over a piece of plastic that was falling into the store and caving in, and I had a door from Home Depot that cost about $30 that looked like it belonged on the side of your patio. I mean, it was a joke. But do you think I'm going to tell the public when I'm paying rent in Manhattan, excuse me, no, I'm not going to fix any of your stuff. No, I'm not going to provide services to any of your small businesses because I'm not done constructing the store yet. Can you come back in 6 months? Fuck no. I'm going to take their money right now. I'm going to have a little sign that says push, even though there's no window on the fucking door. I'm going to do what I can to make the place work as is. And what happens is that later on, when I have the money to do everything right, but I have that money to do everything right, and I have a proper store after I have a customer base, after I have a client base, after I have revenue coming in, and employees that I can now pay off of the revenue that's coming in. That all would not have existed if I had waited until everything was perfect to get the job done. And same thing with this, I had put off doing that video on the forum for a long time, just because every time I was at work, there was something else to do. So I did that video from home, where I announced the new motherboard component level repair forum that I opened. I did that video here with this piece of shit webcam with it, it probably interlaced 3 frames per second over hyper compressed bullshit. But the thing is that right now, again, 2 days after doing that video, 2 days after doing it, I have 28 members of that forum. Can you imagine if I had waited until I had picked out the proper DSLR camera so that I can record a video at home and got a proper tripod and a proper capture card to capture a uncompressed HDMI without distorting the color space? That's all well and good, and you would be able to scroll back through my channel and see that when I did the video announcing that forum, it looked better in September of 2016, but I wouldn't have caught up and done and gains memberships. Not membership. Is that what I want to say? Audience, whatever. Members of the forum, not membership. I wouldn't have gained members to the forum. I wouldn't have gotten any real. Man, I'm dead tired. I am losing control. I am totally forgetting the English language here. I would have lost my momentum. That's what I'm looking for, the word momentum. I would have lost my momentum. I would have not really, gone ahead with my ideas. And by the time I actually had everything I needed for my ideas, I may have not cared about them anymore. So you want to strike while the iron is hot. You don't want to break down your momentum. You don't want to slow yourself down by saying, I'm not going to go for this idea until I can do it perfectly. You want to do the best you can at the time, because the people who are really accomplishing things in life are usually, and at least from my point of view and what I see from people who are successful, who are mentors to me, is that those people were people who never cared if what they were doing was being done in an imperfect environment. Let's try to solve problems the best way we can right now. And by the time reality catches up with us and all of these problems start to come to light, by then, hopefully, we've already solved them. By the time all that SEO crap becomes something I should think about, hopefully by then the forum has 1,000 members. By the time I have to think about, oh crap, I should probably buy a better hot air station than the one that I'm using. Hopefully by then I have hundreds of thousands of dollars every quarter coming in from motherboard repair revenue. It's just stuff like this. You should never think to yourself, I'm not going to implement an idea because it can't be done perfectly. What can you do right now? Perfect can always wait for later. You can figure out perfect later on, sometime later on, after you've already established your idea, after you've hired people, after you've made people happy with whatever services you have to offer, after people have enjoyed the music or the film that you've created. But perfection, right now, perfection has no place in business. Perfection has no place in the creative mindset. And perfection is something that, while it's nice to shoot for, it's nice to try to do things perfectly, if you don't do something just because it can't be done perfectly, you are robbing yourself of accomplishment. Now, the final part of this is going to be that there's a lot of people who are going to have bad things to say about your ideas, especially if they're not perfect. And you're probably thinking to yourself, I should not implement this idea just yet because it is so bad in its current state. It's just so awful that people are going to make fun, that they're going to say it's not good enough, that they're going to think it's a joke. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at what the people who are criticizing you have done with their life. I want you to look at what they've accomplished for themselves. I want you to look at where would they be if you had not been there to help them. For all these people who are going to tell you how dumb your idea is, how silly it is, maybe not say it out loud, but just start kind of laughing at you or looking at you funny when you decide that you want to implement whatever idea it is you have. I want you to search deep down inside and think about it. What have they accomplished? What have they done? Because very often the people who are going to tell you that your ideas are bullshit, that your ideas are dumb, that your ideas are silly, that they're half-baked, very often are going to be people that have not done anything with their life. And frankly, these are not the people that you need to be listening to or caring about having criticism from.